P23. Knowledge, access, power. P23. Wellness and understanding at your fingertips. P23. And that's no cap.
Welcome back to Demystifying DNA, the podcast where we explore topics often wrapped in secrecy and stigma. I'm your host, Dr. Tiffany Montgomery, and in this second episode, focusing on sexual health, we'll delve back into the world of sexually transmitted infections. We aim to shed light on this crucial subject, breaking down barriers and challenging the taboos that often hinder open conversation. Join me and my co-host, Nick Cuevas, as we continue to foster a dialogue that's not only necessary, but long overdue. I've introduced you all to Nick on our last episode, and I will present him to you again today. Friend, marketeer, fitness enthusiast, partner, spouse, dad, son, you name it. This man's got titles, he's got experience, and he's going to work together with me and help us demystify these issues together.
How you doing, doctor? How's it going?
I just cannot complain. I'm glad to be back here talking to you again.
Yeah, this is great. I had a great conversation with you last time. It was awesome. Got a lot of feedback. A lot of people liked it, and it was a great choice for you to want to continue this conversation. It's going to be a good one. I can't wait to get started. I have some good questions for you. And also, you know, this whole DNA stuff and STI, how it all kind of marries in together is kind of mind-blowing. So I just really can't wait to learn more.
Well, you had some time to kind of digest, and I think our listeners got to digest. And, you know, I think that it's a conversation that's welcome and needed because the United States has the highest rate of STD infections among first world industrialized countries. And this is according to Rush University and also supported by the CDC. There are 20 million new sexually transmitted infections every year in the U.S. And almost half of them are among people 15 to 24.
Wow. That's 15 to 24. So you're talking about like people that just became adults. That's crazy.
That's right. And
wow.
In that age group, the most common STD is genital herpes. So 1 in about every 6 people that are between the ages of 14 and 49 have genital herpes. About 90% of people who have herpes don't know they have it because they may not have any symptoms or very mild ones. The thing about herpes is that it can be transmitted even when there are no visible sores, and it can be spread by oral sex. Herpes is not curable, but it can be managed with antiviral medications.
So that means you're stuck with it for life.
You are.
Like, period. Wow.
You are.
And that's sad, but that's just part of what it is. I mean, at least the medicine that they do give out, it subsides it, right? I mean, it makes it, you're livable, you're able to function, correct?
Absolutely. We have great antiviral medications and treatments, but, you know, I'd have to argue the best way to combat it is prevention. Being educated, being informed, and making sure that you don't contract it. And I think that was one of the biggest motivating factors behind P23, right? Removing those barriers so people know how to get those tests and they don't feel uncomfortable about doing it. You don't want people to not get the test because they don't want to go to their doctor and talk about it. And, maybe their mom is always in the room when they go to the doctor, or their spouse, or there are a lot of uncomfortable situations. Sometimes you're by yourself and you still don't want people to look at you because you need to request a test, right?
Yeah.
And so we want to remove those stigmas. We want to remove those barriers and give people like private ways to really focus on educating themselves and being informed about their health, all parts of it. And that really includes sexual health. So I think it's just important to know your status, your options, and be comfortable enough to investigate and challenge these things on your own.
Yeah, very true. It's a great thing to know that, because a lot of people do struggle with that. I would assume. I couldn't imagine having one and then having one and having to deal with that, with telling my spouse or partner or anybody. That would be something that would be challenging. And then the good part about it is, as these at-home tests that are around now provide that's just that clarity, finding out kind of in a discreet way where you don't feel kind of embarrassed, or you don't have any of those things that are just stopping you from getting tested. I mean, it used to be just go to the doctor, but you might not feel comfortable around the doctor discussing those things. And so the test that we provide at P23, that's a great way to not have to worry about things of that nature. I mean, you could actually just do it on your own, find out the results pretty quickly, and then know what to do next, take the next steps, and the whole world doesn't have to know about it.
I think that one of the biggest things, we used to educate our younger folks and our sexually active folks that condoms were the way to go, right? And use protection and go for the condoms. And while condoms are fantastic for things like chlamydia, HIV, and gonorrhea, condoms don't provide 100% protection from herpes and human papillomavirus, or HPV, which are the two most common sexually transmitted diseases or sexually transmitted infections, however you say. Herpes and HPV can infect areas that are not covered by a condom, such as thighs, buttocks, mouth, or the anus. HPV is the virus that can cause genital warts and cervical, anal, throat, and penile cancer. There are, vaccines that help against that, and those things are not even effective against all strands. So we have to be mindful of our status and our partner status. I don't want you to feel like, well, I shouldn't even use the condom, because condoms are great. I gave you the list of things that you could use the condom for, but you have to be informed about who you're with and share that information. So you have the information and you have to share it with the person that you're sleeping with if you want to be socially responsible. If you say, well, doc, how do we stop the herpes? How do we stop the HPV? Well, right now there's no cure. We have vaccines, but how do we stop it is by having these conversations like this.
Yeah, facts. It's good to know. I mean, listen, I need you to talk to like somebody like myself, who is not fully educated on all these different acronyms, HPV, and all of these things. Can you at least highlight one or two of them and just specify the main differences? I know chlamydia and syphilis, but HPV, can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked, because you use these acronyms and you think so many times that people are aware of them. But this is a great time to just stop and say, what is it, right? So HPV is for the human papilloma virus. It is a common sexually transmitted infection that can cause warts or cancer in some cases. Okay. there are more than 100 types of HPV. So I think for lay people or for us common people, we didn't really talk about viral strands. It was more of something that was talked about in the medical community, in the public health community. But once COVID-19 came into the picture, it became more of common or everyday conversation for us.
Yes.
With COVID-19, we know we started out with one strand, and then you started hearing about mutations, and now we have however many strands. I don't want to date
Who
the
knows?
broadcast. I say 21, and tomorrow 4 more strands will pop up, right? So
Yeah.
we'll just say that there are numerous, and we keep hearing about mutations. We hear about the Omicron strand and et cetera, right?
Mm-hmm.
All viruses mutate like this. This is how they survive, and that includes HPV. HPV has been around so long that we now have 100 strands.
That's crazy.
As we talked, I said cervical, penile, throat cancer, anal cancer. HPV is spread from skin to skin contact. That means minus the ejaculation, minus the switching of saliva by the kissing. This is touching. Okay.
That's crazy. I'm sorry.
Back in my day, we would hear things like, oh, I sat on the toilet seat and got that, right? Mm-hmm. This is one of those things that you can almost do that with, right? Mm-hmm. Any skin to skin contact or surfaces, that kind of thing, you want to be mindful of it. Not all viruses live that long on surfaces. So that's not a biggest risk or as big as of a risk as skin to skin contact, but that's something you have to be mindful of. Sometimes it goes away on its own. So you can get it and it'll be like a cold virus where you'll have it for a little while and it'll go away. Other times it'll stay and it'll cause problems. But the best way is to be screened and tested. Again, it really lives at the base of the cervix. So most women are tested. With men, we've started doing something where we do like an oral screening, or we take a saliva test and we look for HPV in the throat area or mouth oral cavity. We also have a swab where we will look at the anal cavity if you're using that for sexual contact of any kind. And that's men straight or gay. A lot of people will have sexual practices or activities that involve anal stimulation. So you want to make sure that the areas of your body that you're using for sexual pleasure are areas that you test. A lot of men don't get an HPV test other than maybe oral or anal because it is very hard to convince a man to do a swab of the penis and take that cotton tip and put it into the shaft of the penis, right? It's painful. Yeah. It's uncomfortable.
Very difficult.
I see your face right now. I see a lot of guys' face when I talk about this.
Very difficult.
Men, it's not something that's commonly screened for or tested for, but with women, annually or every 3 years, depending on whatever the time frame is that their gynecologist gives them, they will be screened for this virus. Most commonly, if your partner is tested positive, you two both may have some treatments or some protocols or some monitoring that you do to make sure that those cells are not changing. So that if cancer is detected, it's detected very early. That's the best type of cancer to detect is early cancer. But these are some of the STIs that are not well known or talked about because they're not immediately symptomatic. You may not have pain with urination. You may not have, burning or itching or discharge. You won't see these types of things, right? It's a little quiet, sneaky viruses that tell your cells, hey, you should mutate. You should give us more cells so we have more time to, partake. And as they're making that environment perfect for them, mutations will happen. And so you'll end up triggering some type of cancer or some type of cellular change. So that makes it a very serious STI. You still want to
Wow.
watch out for it. You still want to take it very seriously. A lot of providers will recommend that you get vaccinated. They all will recommend that you have a screening test performed. And those are the types of tests that P23 loves to support. We
Yeah.
believe in screening, early detection, prevention, and education. That combination right there is our path to removing these barriers and making healthcare a luxury for all.
Very true. That was leading into something that I was going to ask you about also, because I'm not single. I have a fiance, but if I was single, right? And the way that you're describing how STIs work in general and all the different variables and all the different ones that they have out there, if I was to get intimate with somebody, I wouldn't even know what to do. The first thing I would do is obviously get an at-home test kit and get screened and have my partner get screened before we start anything. I mean, it's just crazy the amount of stuff that's out there that we just don't know about. I mean, you're a doctor, so you study this, but the average common man and woman, we know two or three of them that we've heard just throughout time, chlamydia and syphilis and so on. But there's so much more to it. And the fact that we do offer something that will help you detect and just feel comfortable and feel free enough to go ahead and do what you got to do with your partner without having that thing that's on top of your shoulders all the time, weighing you down or just being concerned about that. Because remember, I mean, when you're in a relationship or when you start a relationship, you don't really know what was going on prior to you being there. You might hear about it. They might say, yeah, I had one partner such and such ago, but you're still wondering, in the back of your mind. So these tests are imperative in my estimation.
I mean, I have to agree with you. I would just say, make it a common, normal practice. Like, for example, and maybe we have this discussion and we invite a single person, because I don't even know what that's like. I'm married.
Me too.
I'm a research scientist, and I'm I don't know, I guess what you call old school, maybe. But what even my long-term married self does is we just make it a fun, regular thing that we do. I'm monogamous. I believe my husband to be monogamous. I'd be devastated if he wasn't. But we still do regular testing, whether it's for research and development for new assays at P23, or if it's just us having fun, just kind of looking at what that sample collection looks like, or what that workflow looks like, or what we can learn from these samples. It's fun for me. And so he kind of plays along. You know how your wife might like, or your girlfriend might like movies that are love stories, right? And they make her cry, but she makes you sit there through them. So he kind of toughs it out with me with all of these things that I like to do. And it's not, for me, it's not a trust thing. It's just a staying current with different things. For example, one of the newer assays that we test for at P23 is something called Mycoplasma genitalium. This used to be something that was tested in the micro lab, and maybe it cultured in 14 to 30 days if it was provided enough time and the right conditions to grow. You would be able to detect it and do something about it. But as we've provided innovation in the world of clinical diagnostics and molecular clinical diagnostics, this bacteria that can cause sexually transmitted infections, it infects the genital and the urinary tract of both men and women.
Wow.
Very similar to gonorrhea. It can cause symptoms like inflammation, pain, discharge, bleeding. I remember decades ago, people would say, in college, my girlfriends would say, I know something is wrong, but I tested negative for chlamydia and gonorrhea. Well, we didn't even know then that this organism was out there or that we could test for it. There was no PCR available. We're able to identify more organisms, provide more testing. And when you have these symptoms, how do you treat them? And so this is something that is fun, it's exciting, it's intriguing for me. And you only have these types of tests through research, development, and innovation. It's transmitted through vaginal and anal sex without a condom, from an exposed person. It can be diagnosed now with the molecular samples, and we can detect it in urine or swabs. It's treated with antibiotics, but some are resistant to antibiotics. So it's important to really get your PCR, and especially at a place such as P23, where you're going to have the organism and the antibiotic resistance to go with it. So you'll have that insight on not only what you have and how to treat it. There are a number of bugs and infectious diseases out there. So I would recommend single, married, curious. Make it just a regular thing that you do. Once a month, once a year, come up with your own testing schedule, work with your healthcare provider or your health coach at P23, and come up with that right cadence for when you should be tested, how often, and what that mix looks like for you. We have a lot of great resources to provide, a lot of details about STIs. Don't look at them as like nasty things that nobody can get or that you can't get. Let's say you actually do sit on that public toilet seat, right? These are things that you have to be mindful of now. And I want to raise that awareness and give people a comfortable, private, and safe place to have those educated and informed discussion. As we bring today's enlightening discussion to a close, I, Dr. Tiffany Montgomery, along with my co-host Nick, would like to inspire all of our listeners to take a proactive stance on their health. Has our dialogue today sparked your interest or raised concerns regarding your sexual health? There's a straightforward and private solution at your fingertips. Are you keen to understand more about your sexual health from the privacy of your own home? Consider the simplicity and convenience of an at-home testing kit with P23. These kits are designed for confidentiality and ease. We offer crucial insights into your sexual health. You can purchase these valuable kits at P23Health.com. Thank you for being with us today. Embrace curiosity, arm yourself with knowledge, and step forward in taking control of your health journey, gene by gene. And remember, we are with you every step of the way.
P23, knowledge, access, power. P23, wellness and understanding at your fingertips. P23, and that's no cap.